Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Make 2D a Reality, Steps to Success. We've got Amber Walls and industry leaders with us today to walk you through use cases and the tangible steps you need to take to make sure you make 2D a reality in time. So with that, I'd like to pass the webinar over to Amber to kick us off.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the second part of our two-part series here about Sunrise 2027 2D and what you need to do to help make this happen. So, antitrust, we need to get that out of the way. GS1 US is committed to complying fully with antitrust laws, so we won't be discussing prices, margins, or anything competitively sensitive. Also, keep in mind that GS1 standards are voluntary, so the information I'll be sharing along with our great industry experts is for your information to help make informed business decisions. So today we are all going to be here to provide information on how do I get started with 2D. You're going to hear more about what others are doing, how you can leverage these learnings in your own business, learn more about open questions that are out there, and then also figure out where you go from here. So I, Amber Walls, Senior Director here at GS1 US, will be your friendly neighborhood barcode host for the day, and we'll be talking with speakers from all parts of industry, large businesses and small, about their 2D journey, and we'll let them introduce themselves when we get to those sections. We have a jam-packed agenda, so we'll just get right down to it, and first things first. So our speakers today are going to be sharing parts of their 2D story. So I want to level set everybody in some key 2D barcode concepts. If you have questions throughout the session, please be sure to put those in chat and we'll try to get to them. Also, if we can't get to your questions on the webinar, we'll follow up with those after this session. So don't hesitate to put your questions and comments in the chat throughout. So to level set about 2D barcodes, the reason why this is such a big driver in retail and other parts of the supply chain and larger value chain is they provide better access to information. So when we look at the 1D barcode and what's in the retail market today, it can only contain the product identifier, which is known as the global trade item number. So it's very likely that you already have or frequently see UPC barcodes on your products. Those can only carry the product identifier, which is great, but some businesses need more data. So there's 2D barcodes like the GS1 data matrix that can also encode more data. So in this example, you can see you have an expiration date and a batch lot number right along with that product identifier that begins to unlock further use cases. When you move into the GS1 digital link data format, that takes those G10 and the extra attributes that are optional and puts them in a web compatible format. So a lot of the use cases you're going to hear today from our experts and thought leaders from industry are going to be talking about what does it mean to maybe use extra data and have that web compatible format that can take a user online to extend the product experience. So these are things we're going to hear more about. And if you want more background, that first webinar will be available in our learning management system for you to get more details on this. So for retail products, there's going to be 3 2D barcode options available. And you'll hear a little bit about all of these. The first one is the GS1 data matrix with GS1 element string syntax. And this is really great for those companies that need more data, but aren't necessarily looking to create that consumer experience where you can connect the barcode to online content. If you are wanting to do that, QR code with GS1 Digital Link is a great choice, and you'll see several examples of how that's being used in industry. So this is the one where if you need extra data beyond the G10 or product UPC, you can do that as it's being optional, but you can also have that experience where you can just point your phone camera and go online. The last option for retail products is going to be Data Matrix with GS1 Digital Link. It can offer that same web experience, but it's not as native to devices at scale. QR code's really the one that has that ubiquitous scaled experience. Data Matrix has it to a degree, but not the same as you're going to get with QR code. The big thing with Data Matrix is that it can smaller and has a rectangular format, so it can fit some places QR code can't. Some other concepts you'll be hearing about is how the barcodes relate to the data and then relate to information online. So do keep grounded in that barcodes just hold data for systems to act on. There's different types of barcodes that can all hold similar data that systems can act upon. And the standardized data format in those barcodes is what allows retail systems to do things like price lookup. Once you have that barcode set up and you're using something like the GS1 digital link format, what that barcode scan can link to online can change without change in the barcode. So just like a link you click in your email, that QR code or data matrix with GS1 Digital Link can take consumers to product information, sustainability pages, information on promotions, and more. Another key element to a lot of the use cases you'll be hearing about is layering different technology and systems to create a really holistic experience. So the standards behind 2D barcodes and the data they contain create value when paired with other technologies, standards, and systems. You'll hear more about how 2D plus RFID is unlocking a lot in apparel, and also how different data sharing mechanisms are being combined to really create a wider ecosystem with more complex use cases. And for Sunrise 2027, which is an industry set milestone date to unlock the ability to scan 2D barcodes at retail point of sale, there are options available for brands. So if you're a brand looking to move to 2D, you can pick from any of the 3 barcode options, assuming that there's no regulatory requirements that are in place. For retailers, you need to enable all 3 of the 2D barcode options across your retail systems. And this gives brands the option of which barcode is going to work best for their specific use case. And for everybody, do keep in mind 1D barcodes in the UPC that's been around for 50 years now are not going away. These are going to remain in systems and options as long as they're needed. There is no sunset date. There is no requirement to remove 1D at any point. The end game for Sunrise 2027 is to allow for those 1D barcodes to be dropped at some point when needed and have a 2D barcode that can meet all of your needs and not have to worry about dual marking. And then the last slide on our prereq information here is do keep in mind 1D barcodes will remain in systems until ready for 2D. So this is really important. If you take your 1D barcode off prematurely, then your products might not be able to be scanned at retail point of sale if all of those retailer systems aren't updated. So GS1 US and other GS1 member organizations around the world are working together to monitor adoption rates and really see when is it going to be safe to take these off. And as soon as that milestone is hit, we will be sure everybody in industry knows about it. So switching gears and getting into, really what are the steps to get to 2D and what does the 2D barcode journey look like? It can take a lot of different paths, and you'll hear that from the speakers today with their different journeys. One thing to keep in mind as you listen to the content in here is your journey to 2D is yours. There's a lot of nuances, there's differences in requirements, and your starting point, as well as where you want to end up, is different. So go at your own pace and plan for that accordingly. So a lot of the material and concepts we see are in a crawl, walk, run phase, and 2D is no different. Starting in crawl can get some immediate benefits. For retailers, crawling is just getting to the minimum viable product for Sunrise 2027, which is enabling the ability to pull that G10, that UPC product identifier, from a 2D barcode and do what you're doing with 1D barcodes today, just with the 2D barcode options. And the crawling phase is really about realizing that initial value, whether that's consumer engagement, getting the smaller barcode, being able to comply with some regulations. It's getting that initial value while you work on what your larger journey might be. And who doesn't love a good walk? So moving beyond that crawling phase, what we see happening is you're progressing more towards those 2D only type of packages, getting more scaled out and exploring the use of additional data beyond the G10. Using data beyond the G10, like an expiration date or a batch lot number, might require some system updates, might require changes to your printing. Is something you really need to investigate what it would mean for your business, your product lines, and explore some ROI components. This is also a great time to adjust based on what you've learned in the crawl phase and add more products to your portfolio leveraging 2D. And then last but not least, run. With the run phase, we see a lot more broad leverage of both 2D barcodes and the data they contain. You see a lot more updates to wider systems that begin to network out and take the data from 2D barcodes, use them in different and more complex ways that can take time to build towards. And then last but not least, in this phase is where we see a lot of companies that have fully operationalized 2D. It's part of their normal business. They have it in their SLAs and practices, and they're using 2D barcodes in their business at the same type of speed and process they did previously with 1D. So with that, we're going to go ahead and pop up a poll question. So with this, we are looking to know, what does your run phase look like in your business, knowing that it can be different for every company. So go ahead and get that poll popped up and get some answers here. And while the poll question's going, to the folks in the chat, we will definitely get a copy of this session made available. We'll have the video posted on our learning management system. All right, about 50% of the votes are in. We'll give this just a moment longer. Okay, great. So looking at this, over half of the crowd isn't sure what your run phase is yet. So this session is great for you to attend and start thinking about what's going to be your end game you need to work towards and plan for. Knowing that you can start small with those crawl phases now to get that value and go over time. We have 15% saying G10 only is where they want to end up, and that's great. You can still get the consumer engagement piece, linked to digital disclosures, nutrition information, and get a lot of value there. 23% say date and maybe a batch lot number, which that requires getting into dynamically printed data and some more complex things, but then brings that additional value when you get into use case with freshness management, inventory management, and supporting recalls. And 10% have said it's serial number or bust for them. So these are great things to keep in mind as you think about where your business fits in and what your run phase might need to be. When we look across different product categories, we tend to see groupings of what run looks like for different types of products. So for example, in the shoe and apparel space where there's already heavy leveraging of RFID technology that's serialized, some of their starting points is with serialization. Looking at center store products and a lot of the CPG goods, G10 only can meet the vast majority of those use cases, and they might never need to get to a state where they have more information in that barcode beyond the G10. When you look at variable measure products, bakery, deli, produce, things of that nature, that's when we start to see a lot more expiration dates, variable measure data and barcodes. And then our good friends in healthcare have some regulatory requirements that might mandate the fact they have to at some point get to serialization based on what their product type is. So your product and what the markets you sell it in are definitely a huge factor in what your run phase might be and where you need to prioritize your 2D journey. And no need to memorize the slide, lots of information here, but here's a lot of the factors based on those product categories we hear coming from brands and retailers about where their priorities are. Whether it's a specific benefit, what data to include, or the product characteristics they're factoring in. Print, labeling speeds are definitely an element of this. Where can I get to first is going to depend on what your hardware and systems are. What data needs to be included to enable certain use cases, also a very big factor you're going to hear about in several of the sessions today. So preparing for your 2D journey. As you listen to the stories today and ask questions, keep in mind that before you make that first move, you need to identify key stakeholders both internally and externally to your organization. Bring forward any regulatory requirements that may be applicable because that's going to be a huge driver to where you're going. Assess the existing capabilities and determine where to start is always things that you need to look at before you really start taking those first major steps. And then also understand that getting to a run phase can be a multi-year process. If you're starting from just a G10 and a UPC, moving to serialization and a QR code could take some time, and that's normal. Also, when you look at the different elements of your business and 2D barcodes, you could be crawling in some areas and then running in others. It's not a one-size-fits-all linear path. And do stay grounded in that not every business or product needs to walk or run across all areas. Some things you're definitely going to want to listen for and think about in your own business is that all phases of a 2D journey require evaluations to support that planning and implementation, with key areas being, the barcode scan equipment. Is it updated and able to read 2D and able to convert GS1 digital ink the way that's needed? Printing and packaging design is a huge element of this. Where will the 2D barcode fit? When can we put this design in place? How can we minimize cost in transitioning? Also, connected systems that use the data are a very big piece, as well as enabling those web capabilities to get the consumer or even business experiences. Understanding ROI, putting things in place to measure that, also key, as well as getting those consumer outcomes you really desire, knowing that consumer demands evolve and change over time. So with that, we have one more poll question before we get into our speakers for the day. So we're going to launch one more poll here for the session that's going to ask which part of the 2D journey is most complicated? So getting buy-in, where to start, the barcode stuff, the web things, or just navigating the regulations. Which of those are really, what the sticking point is for your particular journey? All right, we're almost to half, so let's give that a moment or two longer. Okay, great. Can you please go ahead and share those results? So this aligns a lot with the conversations that I've had with industry members, and what we're hearing across the board is just figuring out where to start can be a challenge because there are so many choices. Brands, retailers have a lot of different offerings, different products. Just where can I start, and choosing that starting point can be difficult. Once you get there, you also have to be able to get buy-in, which in our previous session, there was some discussion on, who do you need to get buy-in from? Who is the decision maker? For 2D, that can be pretty complicated as well. The barcode technical details, especially printing and the dynamic data, can be pretty confusing in terms of what setup needs to happen and what are your existing capabilities. The web stuff, if you're not familiar with that, if it's not part of your day job, there's a lot of unknowns there. And then for those that are subject to regulations, navigating those is definitely something that can be complex. And you'll hear more from Prakash from Kenview about what that looks like in his business. So with that, I am done. You no longer have to hear me speak too much. We're going to turn it over to our first industry speaker. So in the first session, we started off with hearing from Wegmans through their video, which I'll drop in chat here shortly. But now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Paul. You can introduce yourself and share, what's Wegmans got going on.
Hello, and thank you for joining. My name is Paul Rosiniak. I work at Wegmans Food Markets. I have 25 years of experience implementing and managing technology systems across the company. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of working with several talented and motivated groups over the years. We've implemented systems in the finance area, accounting, payment systems, executive information systems, also worked in HR and payroll, store systems, including pharmacy, restaurant, our point of sale, payment systems, and scales. And we'll touch on some of those throughout this presentation where they fit in appropriately. And who is Wegmans? Many of you I'm sure have heard of us before. We have 111 stores across 8 eastern states and in Washington, D.C., 53,000 employees doing incredible work every day. Celebrated our 100th anniversary in 2016. And another point of pride for the company is that we've been listed on the 100 best companies to work for by Fortune magazine for 27 consecutive years. Core beliefs that drive our company and drive our everyday aspect of serving our customers is caring, high standards, making a difference, respect, and empowering our employees.
And I thought this was really interesting. Wegmans is one of the few companies that actually came up with a Sunrise 2027 kind of mission statement. Can you share more about that?
Sure. So, in the spirit of being the very best at serving the needs of our customers, we're proud to introduce a new 2D product identification scanning code working with GS1, applying the standards. Our goal is to seamlessly introduce the ability to process the new symbology and leverage the enriched data for our customers' benefit, enhancing inventory management, traceability, develop the ability to read, generate, and utilize the technology in combination with pre-existing 1D barcodes. And I think, and then we believe this new design and information will inspire customers and enhance their overall experience with our products. So the goal here is to utilize and grow the crawl, walk, run approach. Start simple and continue to build out and engage with our customers as well as our internal systems.
Okay, awesome. So, how did you get started with that crawl phase?
We had discussions around the initial MVP approach. Again, minimal viable product. That's part of our goals and standards. We created a backlog and a list of opportunities of areas that we wanted to take advantage of. The MVP approach is identifying a single use case to prove POS can process the GS1 2D barcode. Like most retailers, we have a conglomeration of hardware and software that we use to process and run our business. And that was the first step, taking a look at our front end point of sale, evaluating the hardware scanning devices, working with our providers and the suppliers of that, understanding the model numbers and the variety that we have within our enterprise, and then partnering with hardware and software providers to confirm the firmware and software. It's not as easy or as simple as just can my point of sale system read in the code. It's that whole journey from the printed image going through the point of sale scanners and then into the point of sale system. And then we looked to establish a dedicated test system in our lab for exploration and configurations. Early on, we were looking at and modifying some of our hardware in the lab, beginning the experimentation and understanding, and quickly learned that we needed to segregate that and have it isolated so that we could explore, modify, and change on a whim, if you will, and continue our journey to understand how to get the best uh, activity for those scanning symbols. And then also utilizing GS1 expertise to chart out the scenarios to identify application identifiers desired. There's a list of hundreds of them. There's a subset targeted for retail that GS1 has assembled based on input from other retailers and preferences. And thank you, Amber, for posting that in the chat. So working through that, understanding those, having internal discussions around those. Again, the crawl, can you do the O1 GTIN? And that's pulling that data out of there. But knowing that the GTIN or the QR code has the potential for much richer data points. And many of the fields can be embedded based on the company's desire, whether you're producing the codes or you're consuming the codes.
Yeah, and that link I dropped in chat's a great resource. It's a pretty long document, but it does break out a lot of details. And that particular section gives the most common GS1 application identifiers that are used in barcodes for retail environment. And this is definitely one of those things that, from a retailer standpoint, if you're not doing anything with expiration date, it can take quite a bit to enable that. Anything you want to share on those learnings?
Yes, going through that list of understanding those identifiers, are having discussions. We are not complete yet. We're just in the early phases of the journey, but understanding the variety of the application identifiers that we will want to track and process through, and some of that I touch on in the later slides of how we can go ahead and begin some of that process. Creating the scope, the enterprise action items, working with a wider team and engaging others putting together the scope of the changes that we need. Again, inventorying the hardware and requiring the upgrades, reviewing the software. That's the phase that we're in now, understanding the variety of hardware units. Again, there's the basic flatbed scanner that most retailers have on their point of sale system, our self-checkout units. We have a variety of handheld devices at store level and throughout the company. Understanding the scope of products that will be impacted. Each may have their own set of application identifiers. So this kind of gets into that question of which ones and where. Certainly in discussions with national brand CPG uh, manufacturers as they're going through their journey of what they're looking to produce and track within the code, and then interviewing and discussing with retailers of ideas or thoughts of what would retailers be interested in seeing also embedded in those QR codes that they develop. Private brand at Wegmans, our Wegman brand is a very strong element within our organization. Working through the Wegman brand, because not only do we scan that on our front end, but we're also producing all the packaging and the content and the product within it, and making sure that we're on both sides of that discussion point of what to put in it to track from a producer's standpoint, as well as on the retail consuming side to be sure we can glean all that rich data in the future as we go. And then in-store label product, again, we're a food retailer, so we have scales within our stores, all the perishable departments where we weigh and package product. So again, looking at the in-store scale labels that we do, and there's a variety of UPCs that the EAN or System 20 that's been used. It's generally a retailer provided code that you can set up and use as needed, and then evaluating the discussions of continuing that journey or converting items over to true GTINs and then embedding all that rich scale data into the QR code. Those are discussions we're undertaking currently and understanding our choices, our options, and what's the preferred path for Wegmans to go forward with. And then starting
Yeah.
again with a simple task, scan one QR code, process it through the POS. Amber touched on this earlier, making sure that it works and works well. Let's see, to ensure the data is
Yeah.
passed downstream.
Yeah, the in-store label thing is definitely a really hot topic in fresh foods, especially as a lot of brands and retailers explore what might be required for FSMA 204 and what's needed for traceability and scale. So that in-store labeled, especially on fresh, is something that we expect to hear more and more in some conversations growing over the next year. And also a lot of retailers are looking at those private and in-store label brands as some of their starting points to get initial value too. So it's really not just the story of updating your point of sale system, it's also what do you want to do with your products as a retailer. Great.
Excellent, excellent point. Moving the long term, the larger picture, the roadmap that we're working on assembling for our company, identifying the major enablement activities and sequences, because again, this isn't a one and done. It's not a simple task of, yes, the cash register beeped and I can ring up the item. You need to understand the full gamut all the way through the enterprise. Building 2D adoption timeline and budget. As we know, working through the process, whether it's hardware or software upgrades, maybe it's a change in hardware for your company, understanding those implications and what might that look like. Melding the work into existing company priorities. Like most companies, we have a 5-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 1-year executing plan. Melding that work into existing priorities and understanding how best to leverage other ongoing work and then meld this into that series of activities. Focusing on readiness and learning. Spent a good year early on just reading through materials and joining GS1's many seminars and gaining a background. And it's not just me. There's over a dozen employees that are actively focused and learning and growing on the GS1's format and growing and working towards the QR code and creating a customer communication strategy, both internally and externally. We feel it's imperative to let all of our employees, all 53,000 folks, know where we're headed, why we're going there, and what's the value statement to our customers in achieving the end state of converting over to the 2D barcodes. And then keeping current with GS1 and net initiatives and seminars. Can't help but show the appreciation for what we've been able to learn and grow with working and collaborating with GS1.
Yeah, and this next slide I'm really excited about because we get asked all the time, who needs to be involved? And you talked about it really need to be an organization and a pretty wide team staying up to date. So, what have you really learned on this cross-functional team piece?
putting it together and talking with representatives as we're looking for members to form the teams. Certainly upfront, starting with our store operations area, we have many aspects of that that impacts it, both on the quality of the front end, with the scanning systems, the processing all the way through. The personas of, what are the opportunities there, whether you're a cashier or somebody that's working, in a center store, and customers ask questions. What are the types of scenarios or activities that we're going to want to educate our people with, and type of things we want to put together for understanding the right process on the front end. Our merchandising groups, they're already engaged. They're working with many folks, hearing indirectly or directly on the goal and moving towards 1D to 2D. So communications is imperative. It's happening, and it's not in an isolated or extremely controlled. Many people are interested in doing that, and keeping your merchandisers in mind, and having them give valuable input, both on the Wegmans brand that we have. And there's a complete team there that's doing the package design, the labeling, as well as the content, and making sure that we have the best quality product to offer our customers. Marketing and creative, those areas are imperative as we go through the process of designing the labels and doing that. Amber earlier mentioned the variety of sizes of 2D codes that are out there, and all that needs to be taken into consideration. So to engage them early on, to let them know the journey is beginning, and having them start to think through what might that impact, particularly with things that are in flight and future upcoming work activities. Legal and compliance goes without saying, particularly when we get into the scale labels as we start modifying that. Absolutely have to be spot on with the quality, with all the measurements, the size, the fonts, etc. A tremendous amount of complexity goes into that very simple label that's applied to the packages at store level, and being sure that we don't disrupt any of that or do a misstep. Product information management, PIM for short, whether it's your product catalog team, it's your master data teams. This data, the fields that are being added and run through, taking a look at what originates within your own ecosystem to be sent forward into the codes, versus the information that's generated on the fly, again, such as on a scale, whether it's a date, or sell through, or best by dates that are being generated on the fly, versus content of other static information that'll come from your master systems. And then having a coordinated effort of a GS1 product owner or champion within your company is key. Our CIO plays that role currently, and I've been asked to participate and become one of the spokespersons at our company, taking the championship forward, and being sure that we're articulating the goals and opportunities. Removing barriers and understanding the opportunities. Again, it's typical project management to some degree, but having a steering committee, but making sure not every director and VP in your company needs to be engaged, but the key ones that are basically tied to some of the teams on the core, making sure they're up to speed and they have the vision and the understanding of what's coming forward, whether that's resources or changes or discussions on a new way of doing business in some of these product areas. And then again, executive sponsorship. And Amber is going to share the video that our chairman of the board and CIO put together a few weeks back, a few months back, which shows the executive sponsorship at Wegmans, or the level that it's at. Very
Yeah.
exciting for us, and we're looking forward to the journey.
Yeah, and I had that video in chat. It's a great, great watch and really shows what's happening. And thank you again, Paul, for joining and sharing and laying this out. Lots of great comments in chat, and we'll also get back to your questions. So with that, we're going to move away from the retailer story and start getting into different brands. So to kick off brands, we're going to start with Miss Pearl Harris, founder of In My Mind, I'm Already Retired, who is going to share a little bit about her business and her 2D journey. So Pearl, can you share what you've had going on these last few months?
Thank you, Amber. Hello, my name is Pearl, and I'm founder of In My Mind, I'm Already Retired LLC, doing business as B. In My Mind, I'm Already Retired was created because I was working, still working, after my established retirement age, and I didn't have a foreseeable retirement age. So instead of waiting until I retired, I decided to determine what I viewed as being retired, and then looked for a pathway to live in a retired mindset. I began a new adventure, a lot of adventures, which led to Jacksonville, which led to the astronomy club, which led to the amateur radio club, which also led to surfing, all of which participate in community outreach. I was living in my retired mindset and I found myself with all these outdoor activities, one involving water, and I discovered that I needed a new moisturizer, one that would work whether I was dealing with a natural disaster, viewing the stars on the beach, or surfing. So I started trying to make my own body butter. I tried a variety of butters and carrier oils mixed with essential oils. And then one day, one of my coworkers said, "You could sell that." I didn't think anything of it. Then I was getting ready for an after party after a surfing contest. And one of my surf sisters asked, "What's that fragrance?" And I told her, "Oh, it's a oil that I use for my body butter." And her response was, "You could sell that." So I started a DBA, Beach Body Butter, and we specialize in daily moisturizers for skin care aficionados.
And thank you for sharing. I love a lot of the small business stories because where your product come from really helps grow. And just look at this awesome community behind this. So it sounds like this stage you need to figure out how to sell that product. How'd you go about that, Pearl?
Well, Amber, I knew I wanted to sell my products retail, and I wanted the jar to match the quality of the ingredients and the fragrances of the products. So I spent months searching for jars and setting up the business that made a homemade body butter, beach body butter, already looked like a retail product. When I was ready to test my presentation, customer service, and technology, Sisters of the Sea put their support where their words were by allowing me to sell my product on the beach with them during the Sisters and Survivors event that we host with Saltwater Cowgirls. It's an event where we help breast cancer survivors learn how to surf. At that event, I learned changes that I needed to make with my presentation and payment apps. And I learned that the jars and the G10 barcode gave my product legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Still, I couldn't answer everyone's questions at once. Some people would look and listen, but couldn't tell uh, where I was. They didn't want to get in the crowd, right? So they were cancer survivors and wanted to know details about the ingredients. I didn't realize that yet that GS1 had already had an answer for what could be an issue for beach body butter and consumer communication.
Yeah, and everything about this image right now makes me want to retire, do some self-care, some lounging. So I think you hit the mark on that one. And here is that G10 and a UPC barcode that got you started with the retail. So, can you share a little bit about, vendors and getting started here?
Okay, well, I'm thrilled that the containers match the butters. Besides the thought that the jar must fit the sensation of the fragrance while protecting the butter, and by extension, the consumer from contaminants of the container, the jar also had to be retail ready with standard barcodes. I mean, I wanted beach body butter to be visible to retail vendors and open to all possibilities. See, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've had some experience with retail business barcodes when I owned a publishing company. So after searching the web, I found the G10 barcode. You could purchase them individually or as a group of 10, and they would be specific to the company. So I thought, okay, great. So after my first presentation to the public, I started looking up more information about the 1D barcodes and how to enter information into the database through the data hub. And I learned that before I purchased a barcode, I needed to gather certain information consumers don't see, like dimensions from the manufacturers, because ensuring barcode accuracy or the information for the barcode uh, is crucial.
All right. So how did you really, get started with 2D specifically? Were you familiar with this already?
Okay, so When I surfed the GS1 site and saw the information about G10, I also saw Sunrise 2027 and the 2D barcode. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, and the 2D barcodes are essentially QR codes, right? So during my assistantship, I had a graduate research assistantship at Kennesaw State University, and we had researched and created barcodes because I oversaw the innovation and engagement co-working lab for the director of community engagement. And in this space, I assisted English department students as part of their internship course. So this included posting jobs for them to gather information to come into the lab for assistance and job search materials. So we changed the bulletin board from slips of paper that they could grab to QR codes. So we have QR codes posted on the bulletin board. And it happened to be a good idea because during the next semester, the pandemic began. And before the school shut down, students were able to scan the code for assistance. They didn't necessarily need to go into the crowded room and rifle through books. So the QR code brought up this memory for me. And after reliving this memory in my mind, I knew that I could add QR codes to my label. But how? So I reached out to GS1 and to you, Amber, and you sent some great resources for me and answered my questions about the 2D barcode. So that's how we ended up here.
And I just love this one. So here is the good QR code shot. So here's a snippet from your label. And if the crowd has their phones out, you can just get your default camera app, point that QR code, and experience what Pearl has set up for Beachbody Butter for yourself. So how did you go about, setting this up and deciding what to link to?
Okay, so creating the 2D barcode process was a fairly easy process after, speaking with you and you showing me the 2D link generator. So the first step was entering the information to the 2D link generator because I already had my GS1 barcode. And then I copied the link and used a trusted QR code generator to create my QR code. Then I sent the QR code to the graphic designer to edit the label. And then I sent the altered label to the jar manufacturer for production. Then I needed to create a landing page on my website to which consumers would be redirected when they scan the QR code. And that is what you see here on the slide.
Yeah, and I think this is awesome too, because the folks that use your product, cancer survivors, these are folks that really care about what's going on in their body, how it can be absorbed, how to use it correctly. And this is just amazing information to have readily available. The other thing too that is great, we get asked about all the time, especially from small businesses, is, do I need new vendors? Do I need new processes? You were able to use your existing printer, design applications, and you're able to set up the redirect from the barcode to this content using your existing platform. So that's a really great learning for a lot of the folks on the call, and actually answers a lot of the questions we got during the last workshop too. All right. So can you share a little bit more about how you decide what to link to?
Yes. So I was thinking, now I have my QR code. What's next? So I had more homework to do, right? As small business owners, we're always researching and doing homework. So before I created the redirection webpage, I took a field trip to Target, CVS, Dillard's, Publix, all stores nearby that might sell products similar to Beachbody Butter. Because remember, the goal is to be retail. So most of these stores would most likely have embraced the 2D barcode technology. So I viewed their barcode placement on their labels and scanned some of the barcodes to see what information different companies provided. Some of them redirected customers to the product's webpage, some of them to a separate website product page online. Um, Beachbody Butter's landing page provides information that may or may not be on the product page. But I did not want to direct them to purchase online. They were already in the store, right? Get that purchase right then. I want the customer to purchase Beachbody Butter in the store if they are there. If they want to purchase online, they will find me and purchase from the website or the website of the store where they saw my product. Most importantly, the information page empowers customers to easily answer their basic questions while they're shopping.
All right, awesome. So what comes next, and any advice for business owners getting started?
Well, so that's what's next, the second part of the journey, right?
Mhm.
So I've identified errors that I've made in the process, and I will at that point have data feedback from consumers. And so hopefully we'll launch the full size jars in 2025, which that's the larger jar you see there. Um, the goal is to learn from this journey, accurately enter information, purchase new barcodes if needed, improve the barcode information that consumers might not be aware of, but will ensure they get the product they desire. In addition, I plan to improve the landing page offering customer feedback and batch information if needed. The journey of creating Beach Body Butter from establishing, in my mind, I'm already retired LLC, to developing the body butter and the DBA Beach Body Butter, from searching for a barcode to speaking on this podcast, uh, it humbles me and it gratifies me. Um, my advice to small businesses: identify your goal, outline flexible steps to achieve it, and be open to pivoting when the opportunities arise. When this opportunity arose, I was ecstatic. So seek alternative, cost effective ways to gain visibility. As for Beach Body Butter, the GS1, US G10, 2D barcode is my path to visibility, and I appreciate it.
And thank you so, so much for joining, Pearl. And this is a great story. And again, there's so many small businesses out there that are looking to get started and making, their path, and being able to give more of that experience, that emotional connection online with that digital link. It can be such a big part of that. So I am excited to see what happens next on your journey. And with that, we're going to go from Florida beaches to the East Coast shore and talk about what Ship Bottom Brewery is doing. Much like the great Wegmans video, we have an awesome one that just came out from Ship Bottom we'll kick this off with.
This was a really exciting project for us to kind of look at, working with craft beverage and craft breweries.
Ship Bottom Brewery has been a member of GS1 US since 2016. It's opened doors for us, and we're very excited about using 2D barcodes.
Ship Bottom was really looking for something innovative where they could start to do something with GS1 and looking at standards and engaging with their consumers.
We start working with AD Print Plus earlier this year to define the pilot and what we wanted to do. We started our contest with Bomb Pop and Super Bomb Pop. The winner would get a tiki bar cruise. They basically scan the product, looked at it online, filled out some information. We had 246 scans and 46 form entries. And then we did a random generator for the winner.
This partnership lets them do some really unique things like these physical and digital explorations with QR codes and other unique things that they can do from a promotional perspective.
Using 2D barcodes with AD Print Plus and GS1 Digital Ink enabled us to really talk and communicate with our customers.
We're hopeful that Ship Bottom can learn a bit more about their customers and maybe get some insights around what future products would they like to see, what kind of data they get back, and also really how does standards help kind of bring some of that information back to them.
The opportunity using the 2D barcode scans from AD Print Plus really helped us engage our customers, get the results and the data that we need to analyze in the back end and make decisions for the future. GS1 really helped facilitate the coordination to bring one package together on this pilot. It was a seamless transition, and the barcode scan process and contest worked really well for us.
All right, that is an awesome video, and that song's gonna be stuck in my head the rest of the day. So welcome, Rob. Can you tell us a little bit about Ship Brewery?
Yeah, welcome everybody. I appreciate it. Hope everybody's having a great morning. Thanks for attending this session. Ship Bottom Brewery was founded, it was a hobby originally that started out of my garage back in 2011. Since that point, we grew, got investors behind us, and in 2016, turned it into a business. I was actually in the technology industry, technology sales and consulting, engineering for about 30 years, and the hobby kind of went wild. I had friends similar to the last presenter that tried some of the brands I was brewing out of my home and encouraged me to start this, and this thing kind of went nuts. So I saw my regular business and what I was doing as a lifestyle or a living going one direction, and then this business needed my attention. So we started our location out of Beach Haven, New Jersey. We're right on the bay, block from the bay, probably 2 blocks from the beach. So we are brewed for the beach. It's a lifestyle that we live every day. We have 4 locations. One that you're seeing there in Beach Haven, New Jersey, that's a front shot of our location with a beer garden out front. The one to the right is Media, Pennsylvania, where it's at an orchard. So our busy season, orchard seasons right now, we have pumpkin picking, apple picking, hay rides. We are totally slammed in that location. Our Barnegat, New Jersey location is our warehouse. So that's where all our distribution for right now we're distributed in New Jersey and some counties in Pennsylvania. So we are just trying to basically expand, but live in our home market for now and expand from there. And then we opened our Swarthmore facility in 2022, just right after the pandemic. So we actually started construction during the pandemic and opened that facility.
Okay, awesome. And when did you start working with GS1 US and why?
From the very beginning, we saw that we had a need. We needed barcodes, 2D barcodes every day. It was referred to me by a relative that worked with GS1, and when I logged on to the website, signed up to get barcodes using Data Hub was very easy. I came from technology, but I think anybody could use the product. It's very easy to understand, to get barcodes for everything you need. I have so many barcodes out there now. It's incredible. And the need for them, from grocery stores to liquor chains, everybody requires them. I had to put together a presentation last week for a giant food market where they asked for a sheet of our barcodes for 2025. So this is something that I don't think we'd be able to live without and be in stores if we didn't have the 2D barcodes.
All right, so getting into that pilot, can you share some more details about it?
Yeah, sure. I was very excited when AD Print Plus and GS1 US came to us in early spring. It was a great opportunity for us. Like I said, I have a technology background. So getting more in technology and more information from our consumers is critical to me. We looked at this project. What we wanted to do first was define the pilot, understand what everybody needed out of the pilot, pick the brands. So 2 brands that we picked were coming out in June. One was Super Bomb Pop ale. It tastes exactly like a bomb pop or a firecracker uh, popsicle with a little sour in it. Branding on that was tremendous. We wanted to incorporate the U.S. Barcode plus a UPC code on that. And then Super Bomb Pop was another one. That was more of a malt flavored beverage. It's a heavy hitter, so it's at 13.5%, 19 2-ounce cans. That's something that we got into new packaging wise this year. Went with another brand, Orange Sunset, doing that at 9%, and this one's 13.5. So this is something that the consumers are going to basically grab and go singles or two if they're going to a ball game or an event, a concert, whatever. It was perfect for this release. We released this in distribution and also at our retail locations in Beach Haven, Swarthmore, and our beer garden, Linville Orchards. And we really wanted to see how these brands are going to perform in the market, both in a 16-ounce format and the 19.2, and we defined a pilot around that.
All right, so in terms of the data, what were you able to collect?
We wanted to have a call to action first. That was for people to scan the cans. So what we did is we put that UPC code on. The data was that the UPC code was linked to a website that I worked with AD Print Plus and GS1 US to put on a website. So we had 10 questions that were on that website. And the call to action was if somebody did this and we picked from a random generator who was going to win, they were able to get a Tiki Bar Boat Cruise, and you see that branded there. These questions allowed us to really look, do a survey of demographics of the customer. So understanding where our customers are coming from, age brackets they're coming from, who drank us, why they drank us, if they ever had us before, if they're new customers, returning customers, what beers they liked, what beers they saw in the market that they wanted us to brew. So it gave us a lot of information, who our customer base was and what they were looking for in the future from us. And it enables us to basically turn around and make critical business decisions that will help our business in the future.
Yeah, I mean, how can you turn down on a survey to go, have a party on the Tiki Bar boat? So what are your next steps after this pilot?
Next steps, actually reviewing that data, reaching out to some of those customers because they did send us information that we could text them back, email them back with data, add them to a newsletter, and then follow up, do more of these kind of promotions when we have more brands coming out. We could actually push more, find out more detailed information. Our business right now is strictly competitive, is really competitive, I should say. In the last couple of years, I think it's up to 9,000 breweries in the nation. Every day they're opening, and we want to make sure we're on the forefront using technology like this to help us make decisions to enable us to move forward.
All right. And okay, so a lot of folks always ask, what should the consumer experience be? What should it link to? And the answer is always kind of, it depends, right? Who's your target audience? What do they care about? What are you trying to get, from it? And in what you shared, it's a great example of providing the type of content your audience really cares about that also gives business value back. And as part of my job, I get to talk to all sorts of folks about these implementations. And the question I always get, I think that speaks a lot to your audience, is Bomb Pop's great. Super Bomb Pop was awesome. What's their next seasonal flavor? So what do you have for the fall? Let's give the people what they want here.
All right, so next up is our Ecto Cooler IPA. This is a cult classic. Everybody loves this. We start doing this beer about 4 or 5 years ago. Do different variations on the label, but it's right around Halloween. This is something that we did and it just caught fire. We have lines down the street for this beer, and typically we sell out in a half hour or 45 minutes with it. So it's extremely limited. It's a fun beer. It's actually slime colored, so it's green. It tastes great. It's not one of my favorites, but a lot of people love this, and it's something that's sought after. That people, travel a long ways to get this brand from us.
All right, awesome. So thank you so much for sharing this and great video, and also looking forward to the case study coming out on your 2D pilot. All right.
Yeah, thanks
So
for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. So we're going to switch gears from beaches and go to something very important in terms of the health and beauty space. So this is something when we're talking about linking to information online, removing packaging material, getting up-to-date information to consumers and patients, very, very hot topic. So with that, I want to introduce Prakash Christopher from Kenvue to share a little bit about what they're doing and looking at with their 2D journey. Prakash?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Prakash Christopher. I work as the director for the digital identification and traceability team at Kenvue. Kenvue is the world's largest consumer healthcare company, and we are at an intersection between healthcare products and consumer products. So our team is also supporting serialization for certain brand market combination. We are in the run phase of the business in certain countries' regulation, but we are also ramping up our QR codes powered by the GS1 digital link for all of the brand market combination. So for our deployment of QR codes, we have established the standards by building a cross-functional team. That's like focusing on making sure that we get the QR code right. We focus on the design elements. make sure the design elements are compliant all the way from the design specifically to the way the retailers also can scan. We are also operationalizing the artwork process, making sure that the QR code comes to life with a proper digital link and associating with the GTAM. And this is the base that's kind of for both consumer product as well as for health products. And for the health products, we have some additional stakeholders from the regulatory nature, and we are actually constantly looking at what regulations are actually coming in the roadmap and positioning ourselves to meet the regulation needs.
All right. So with that too, that's a big question that comes from everybody is, what are the elements of regulation? How do I look at this at a multi-market angle with different regulations coming in the pipeline that are still in the works? So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So one of the regulations that we are actually looking for is the electronic product information leaflet. Currently, most of the products have the paper leaflet, and we feel like the paper leaflet can be replaced digitally. And regulations are set by countries, and some of the countries have actually communicated either in the draft format or actually also given a timeline when these regulations are set to go live. So we are keeping this in mind, and this is where the consumer engagement perspective also takes a little bit of a different route, because we want to be very mindful to make sure that the consumer engagement is actually pointing to the regulatory needs and making sure that we have the systems and processes aligned to fulfill that regulatory experience.
All right. And so here I have the roadmap that you shared about what that's looking like in lots of countries with different years here.
So what we're noticing in the roadmap is like there are more regulations coming across, and we're also noticing nuances in the regulations. And currently, what we're seeing, the trend is like it's growing. So we see Turkey, which has kind of communicated their regulation as well as the timeline, and we are also seeing Jordan and EU and EEA, as well as the countries in the Gulf, communicating in terms of regulation of what their requirement in terms of e-bill. And we're noticing a little bit of nuances. For example, Turkey's got a text to voice solution. They're kind of looking for that to be built in as a capability. So when you have the consumer engagement experience, when you scan the QR code, they want us to provide this audio information to it. We are also keeping our eyes and ears closed, closer to understanding what the regulations are coming in EEA. They're asking for much more of a seamless integrations into the patient portal so that we can deliver the product information in a much more of an integration way. So what we're doing currently is to make sure that we are actually participating in the regulatory boards and understanding regulation. Also, we are doing some pilots. Right now, we're doing two pilots, specific to UK and also with Singapore. And this is a simple transformation of the digital layout into a into a through the QR code. That's the pilot. It's basically a crawl functionality that we are actually doing. But we are also mapping sure what the requirements are coming through in the next couple of years, and we will slowly make sure that we are able to meet regulation by building more capabilities. Yeah.
All right, so moving to kind of the architecture here, and I've gotten a couple notes that the slides aren't progressing. Right now, you should be seeing a e-pill architecture slide. Can you share a little bit more about some of the key points with enabling this with 2D?
Yeah, the e-pill architecture, what we're actually looking at it is, we need to have a centralized form for data collection. And the most important benefits of having the e-pill is to make sure that the patients are actually having an enhanced digital experience, meaning that the content that we are actually providing can be much more accessed in an easier manner. So data collection is very important for us. We want to make sure that the product content is available in a digital format, and then when we're actually generating the QR codes for the consumer experience as well as to make it in the artwork process, we want to make sure that the systems are actually validated, and actually we are making sure that it's a GXP compliant system too. So we want to make sure that part is also taken care. Then we are seeing nuances like, okay, what do we do for country specific requirements? Right now, I've just called out the text to voice. specifically picked from Turkey. We feel like if we build this capability, it can be used for our healthcare product as well as for consumer products in terms of requirements as we see down the road. And reporting is one of the aspects, right? We want to report product information into some portals, mainly from EU and US based. And we want to make sure what data we collect is also sent into the right reporting needs based on the countries. So we are looking at a very high level architecture right now. And right now we are trying to make sure that we want to break this down into smaller parts and slowly build the capabilities to it. Well, how we are actually looking at it is also right. One side, we also see the regulatory coming in, and we are also working closely with our supply chain and as well as with the artwork team to figure out are there any artwork changes that are actually happening in the process right now. And we are identifying these as the probable candidates for us to put this QR codes for our pilots, and so that we can start putting the QR codes, and slowly when the regulations coming in and we are actually building technical capabilities, we have the full functionalities enabled.
Okay, thank you. And with this too, is there any major learnings or things that you want to just share for the audience to consider?
I think building a cross-functional team is one of the most important basic step. You want to make sure that you're getting the QR code right. So you want to make sure your design principles, the standards, are actually built into your brand book so that the design gets the QR code right. And operationalizing of the QR code in the artwork process, we want to make sure that the G10 is actually embedded rightly. So make sure the same checks that you have for your UPC is slowly getting built into the QR codes in. And how does the consumer feel the experience from scanning the QR code? And we want to make sure that that's a seamless consumer and brand experience. And we want to make sure that we build templatized solutions so that we are curating the content in a much more of a seamless manner. So we'll start small, providing product information in, but we do want to incorporate product ingredients and sustainability information as we kind of build a solution from a consumer engagement perspective. The dynamic QR codes gives us the flexibility. Start small, build the content, and then you can add the dynamic content as we kind of go across, depending on the use cases.
All right, and thank you for that great advice. And we continue to hear these themes. The cross-functional team is so important. Start where you know you can start and get value. And this is something that over time we definitely expect to evolve and stay on top of with, how can you meet both regulatory needs as well as business and consumer needs across all of these markets. And with that, thank you very, very much, Prakash, for joining and sharing what Kenvue has been doing in this space. And we look forward to hearing and seeing more. With that, I'm going to quickly stop my screen share and move the presentation. With the, is a live presentation, I need to hop over and we're going to skip to their section while another presenter is working on getting on the line today. Let's be one moment here. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into really what is it going to take to go beyond retail. So be one moment here. All right, and hopefully for those where the screen wasn't progressing, you can now see an updated screen saying take the 2D beyond retail. So a lot of the conversation around 2D is all about getting the right information to the right place at the right time. Sunrise 2027 is all about retail, but why not other places is the question that people very quickly ask as a fast follow when they look at retail. So especially companies like I have distribution centers, fulfillment centers, I have integrated business operations throughout my supply chain. How might we use 2D there? So a lot of the why behind 2D going beyond the retail point of sale is the fact that consumer each products are scanned lots of places. When you look at food service and other parts of the supply chain, what's being updated for retail will need to be scanned beyond that. And if you're scanning at the each level and updating systems, well, why not cases and pallets? We're also seeing a lot of regulatory considerations in the healthcare space, as well as with FSMA 204. The Food Safety Modernization Act is really driving for more data to be available, right place, right time, and 2D barcodes might be a way to do that. With that, you look at GS1 Digital Link and QR codes, there's quite a few B2B and B2C applications that can exist at those higher levels of packaging. Safety sheets comes up all the time, order information, things that can be beneficial to get scanning the case as opposed to each level. Also, 2D barcodes are just smaller and tend to be more reliable. The GS1 128 commonly used in these applications has a lot of limits to it. And also going beyond the global trade item number, looking at logistic labels and serial shipping container codes, there could be benefits there. Potentially the why not is we don't know exactly what the end market equipment is right now. So GS1 US has partnered with BDC Research to do some work to figure out what is it going to take to move to 2D outside of retail, including things like, does it have 2D capable equipment in the environment? Can printing capabilities match the need, and so forth. And going just back to the size of this, when you're looking at label considerations, all of these barcodes shown on the screen now contain the same G10, expiration date, and batch lot number. When you look at the overall size of the barcode, that GS1128 1D barcode has a limit of 48 data characters. So that's pretty well tapped out pretty quickly. So this is another thing of just the size, ability to put multiple barcodes on pack. And we're also seeing a trend in the logistics and space of when you get your mail later on today, take a look at the barcodes on there. It's probably 2D. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce one of our speakers who's doing some amazing things with 2D barcodes in the general distribution level at that case level of the packaging. So David, can you please join us here and talk about what Tyson Foods is doing in the space?
Sure, thank you, Amber. First of all, Paul did a great job at discussing the cross-functional teams required. At the manufacturer level, those are all pretty much the same. So you have to have that buy-in at all levels to make it successful. Let's go ahead and move forward. So at Tyson, we've come a long way over the years. A quick history: we used to pre-print all of our product labels. We did have a G10 barcode on the product, and that could be scanned to identify the product, but there was no additional information available that could be scanned for when it was produced, when it expired. There were no other fields. So this was probably circa 99, and we would inkjet that additional information on the case. So as we moved forward into the early 2000s, we began adding the GS1 128 barcode to our products. In this example, you can see it contained not only the G10, but also the Tyson lot code and the serial number. This allowed us to scan the product into our inventory systems, allowed our customers to scan and determine when that product was produced, and the serialization helped us track that through our systems. Some of the challenges we had some scannability challenges. A lot of our labels were such a size that it only facilitated a 10 mil barcode, and a lot of those had to be printed high speed. Potentially the orientation that would bleed over a little bit between the barcodes. So scannability was a challenge on a lot of our longer labels. And then in this short video, you can see we have some scanners set up that are validating this product. This is a case here where the customer requires 2 labels on the product, and we have 2 scanners set up that are scanning those to make sure that they match each other, they have the same serial number, make sure none of the machinery is out of sync. We also simply scan for the presence of the label, make sure that we don't distribute anything that's unlabeled, product sortation, and also some of our cases are pre-printed and barcoded. So for those, we'll also ensure that we are matching the case in the label, make sure we don't have anything in the incorrect box. So as we moved into other areas of our business, specifically variable weight product was a challenge for us, and we didn't have enough real estate available to use a single barcode to put everything in the label that was required. One of our use cases was to scan those barcodes to configure this product in our inventory system, and it just simply didn't fit in one barcode. Because this is a corner wrap label, where you see the dashed line there, half of that is on the main panel of the box and the other section is on the end panel. That allowed the customer that scanned these to scan either panel, but again, it took a lot of real estate to do that. With laser scanners, you'd also have to scan each one of those barcodes. As we advanced in technology, we could use a vision scanner to scan these at the same time, but again, real estate is important. You can see the label on the right has a lot of ingredients on it, 2 languages. It's one of our busier labels. These are 12 inches long, so we're also printing these at high speed. A lot of our production lines at a box level run 20 plus boxes per minute. So printing at a high speed also decreases scannability. So quality and reliability at those higher speeds was a concern as well, a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and these stacked GS1 128 barcodes is something that we continue to hear at GS1 as it's a problem, especially with hand scan applications. When you go to pick products, some of the automated scannings will only catch one barcode or the other. So you've taken all the time, cost to print those, and the data's not getting captured. So this is another reason why people are like, hey, can we maybe look at 2D some more?
Right, exactly. So as we got the buy-in that we needed internally and the sponsorship to move forward and add the data matrix to our labels, it gained us a lot of benefits, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But one of the key action items that we had to do was update our application. We have an in-house label design suite and client application for printing the labels. So we kicked off a project and we added that data matrix functionality to the label. So that was one of the first steps. And then, of course, you've got to update your technology. We had a lot of laser scanners, a lot of older printers. So as we went into projects in our production facilities, which we have over 100 facilities, so it's a pretty massive undertaking. Several years ago, we started updating all of that equipment to equipment that's 2D ready. So we were able to print those data matrix codes. We had the capability well before we began. So we had to do some legwork there. We know a lot of our customers don't have the vision equipment, but internally, we're preparing for that, and we've been replacing that for a long time now. So that's a cost that we tried to absorb along the way as we updated technology and production lines through other expansion projects.
And this is one of these pieces where the updating technology and what is in the environment now, is it really still laser scanner based? How does that work in different parts of the value chain for different product types is something that is going to be the big indicator of, if and when 2D can move forward in this environment at a scale. And I think this also plays well into some of the things Paul talked about is, it's not necessarily easy to know all of the scanners, all the printers, all the versions of firmware on all of those things. That piece alone of just figuring what you have and how to update it can take some time.
Right, and our footprint, it would be measured probably not just the tens of thousands, but possibly even 100,000 or more devices that would be affected. So implementing the new standard, we had to update the hardware. We have control systems that relied on the GS1 128 barcodes for things like product sortation, where you have multiple products approaching a single palletizer. We have to sort those on the way. But we began to print these on the factory floor, and as we moved forward into the new projects, we updated the control systems to use the GS1 data matrix. We have much better scannability. You can see the label sample here. The GS1 128 barcode in the middle has 4 data elements. The data matrix over to the right has 8, and it's about half the size, and it's much more scannable. So there's considerable benefits to us. We have left all of the GS1 128 barcodes present on the label. We know we have customers that scan those, and there's no way to know who they are. we know the customers that require it, but if it's printed there on the products over the years, people see that, they begin to use it. So you have to be careful when you transition away from something like that. So those will
Yeah.
coexist for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah, and you touched on something that we get asked a lot at GS1 and folks are exploring on their own, is, how much better do 2D barcodes scan than 1D barcodes? And I think this is a great image too. You can just see how kind of narrow those bars are. 1D barcodes don't have the error correction levels that 2D barcodes have. When we've continued to see that we're hearing 2D barcode just perform better. Has that been very consistent, or has that been kind of hit and miss in your experience?
No, it's been consistent. Where we've had failures, it's simple things like it's printing too close to the edge of the label. That's a setup and configuration issue. It's things like that, or maybe it has a wrinkle in it from a misaligned applicator. But if you're using a good data matrix barcode, your scannability should be approaching 100%. It should be well above 99.
All right, thank you.
With the GS1 128 here, if you look at the left side of that barcode on the previous slide, you'll see that those lines do have bleed over between them. They're visible even here in the presentation. But when you look at that data matrix barcode, it's very clear.
All right. And it's not just 2D, you have that great implementation too where you're leveraging RFID. So can you share some about that?
Right. So this label is one of our RFID labels, and this is a customer required label element. So we've I guess you can see the inlay there at the right side of the label, just to the right of that data matrix barcode. And we encode that, and then the data matrix barcode that is on the right side contains a hexadecimal value. So if the customer has any issue with the encoded data, they can scan that and they still have their SG10 available. And then the data matrix code on the left side of the label is for the supplier use, and that contains all of our manufacturing information. So those can coexist and be differentiated at the scanner level.
All right, great. So let's one last great video here.
So this is an example of where we have a couple different products coming down the production line. We have a vision scanner. As the box approaches, it scans that label. We're not sorting this product. This is going into a case freezer. This is a fresh poultry product, and these boxes are frozen individually in this freezer. And we have to know how many of each product go in, the order of them, and where they're stored within the freezer. And as they come out the other side, we know what that inventory is, how long the boxes have been in there, and we can palletize it in a sorted manner when it comes out of this freezer. So a lot of good uses in the manufacturing area, and the increased scannability is second to none. That was huge for us.
All right, amazing. So thank you for sharing this. And I did have one question that if you could answer would be awesome. So going back to some of these labels, how much does this help with not having to have as much or rely so much on the human readable text that's largely encoded in these barcodes now?
Yeah, the human readable text under the barcode, the GS1 128 is often ignored. We have all of that same information printed up above. We decided not to itemize that out under the data matrix barcode because of real estate issues on a lot of our labels. But and another thing is making sure that these are parsed correctly. I know that's second nature to most of us on the call. But when scanning those at a control level, we often have industrial scanners connected to PLCs, and those don't parse the AIs in many cases. A lot of those integrators have counted characters. So one more thing to consider there as well.
All right, excellent. And thank you very much for joining and sharing what Tyson's up to. And I know a lot of folks on the call and they'll be watching this video are extremely interested in what's going to happen with 2D internal distribution. Like you said, a lot more data, smaller footprint, more reliable scanning. So I appreciate your time, David, and we can't wait to see what happens next.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so had a little bit of presentation snafus here real quick, and then looking at time, I'm going to go ahead and just turn to questions and some key recaps for this session. So thank you all for joining us. This will be made available afterwards, and if you've asked a question in the chat that we haven't had time to get to, I'll be sure to follow up with you on that. Some of the key questions I want to go ahead and speak to are around barcode verification. We had quite a few folks ask about barcode verification, which is using equipment to check the quality of 2D barcodes or 1D barcodes. Barcode verification is something that a lot of businesses are investing in, especially as they transition to different types of barcodes that they haven't used before. Again, 2D barcodes tend to be pretty reliable, a little bit easier to print in some applications, more difficult than others. So if you're looking to really get into, will my barcode scan well, barcode verification is a great way to do that. And the GS1 US Solution Provider Finder offers a lot of great choices for folks that can help you with that. Another question that we had a lot last session as well as this is it mandatory to move to 2D barcodes? And unless there is a regulatory factor in play that is mandating that, you have the option as a brand owner whether or not you move to 2D and which 2D barcode you choose. Do keep in mind all GS1 standards are voluntary, and also Sunrise 2027 and its global counterpart Ambition 2027 are industry set milestone dates. Yep, and thank you, Aaron, for dropping that solution provider finder in the chat. Several folks asked questions about what's happening in retail pharmacies. So as part of a lot of retailer activities, not only are they looking for, the self-checkout, cashier-led, and different things, they're also checking into what's going to be required in their pharmacies and other places where barcodes are scanned throughout their ecosystem. So pharmacies do have a lot of different requirements in terms of what type of software can be used, what it connects to. And it very well might take some different work because you're using different scan equipment and different systems to make sure everything flows well for those types of products in that part of the store. So a couple other themes we got here. Why do you potentially want to move to 2D? And part of that, answering that question is a very big it depends. For some brands, it might not make sense to do now. For a lot of brands, there is a need to begin to have consumer-facing information, to take some of the things happening like in apparel and general merchandise where they're already using RFID, that's really been used for more of the supply chain pieces, and then tie that into consumer-facing and point-of-sale applications and really connect that full circle. So why 2D isn't a one-size-fits-all answer, and hopefully this information also helps you figure out why 2D for you. As you saw with the different speakers today, where they started their journey, what their focus is on, what their crawl, walk, run phases are going to be, are all different, and that's okay. There's a lot of flexibility in moving to 2D barcodes because you need that as part of your business to make sure it's going to work best for you. And with that, I want to go ahead and thank all of the speakers again for sharing what their story is and how their 2D journey is progressing. It takes a lot of effort and time, and we appreciate all that you put into sharing with our audiences today. So with that, I'd like to just do kind of a round of applause for our speakers, and we will close out the session. And again, if you put questions in chat, we'll follow up with those. Thank you very much, everyone.